Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. Broadcasting live presents Two Guys and a Bible with Don Preston and William Bell. Join us each week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central as we bring you exciting, sound, challenging, and comforting messages regarding the end times. Thank you for tuning in today. Don Preston is the founder of Preterist Research Institute, or PRI. Don is a prolific author, having written and published 19 books, a host of audio and DVD studies, and is a debater and defender of the full preterist view. His websites are BibleProphecy.com, Eschatology.org, and DonKPreston.com. William Bell is the founder of AllThingsFulfilled.com Ministries and has a website bearing the same name, and has authored 3 books, audios, and DVDs. He has published hundreds of articles and recordings. And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Two Guys and a Bible broadcast with Don Preston and William Bell.
Okay. Well, what in the world? Hello? All right. This says, all right. Hey, William. In the world have I done? Hey, William, are you with us this evening? Folks, I honestly do not know if you can hear me. I don't know if William is there. I know that William has been without any kind of internet for almost all day long. We were speaking on the phone prior to our program, but he said he was going to try to get on. I cannot hear anything. So if anyone can hear me and let me know. Okay, William says that he is online, but I cannot hear him. And Rod, hey.
Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust. Broadcasting live presents Two Guys and a Bible with Don Preston and William Bell. Join us each.
Uh-oh. What happened? This is not good. William, if you can hear me, let me know somehow. Text me, or Rod, Rupert, if you can hear me, please send me a text very quickly. At the current moment, I am receiving no sound of any kind whatsoever. I mean, nothing. And a moment ago, I got the intro sound, but it cut off before it even finished. And so,
okay, Don, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Hallelujah.
Okay, I've been on from the beginning, and I just turned on my cell phone. I heard you from the time that you came on, and for some reason it doesn't appear that my microphone is working. So I'm trying to resolve that problem. But,
okay.
You're good. And I did play the intro again just to let you know it was me. That's why I cut it off early.
Okay, very good. Well, when I went into the studio, it would not let me hit. Well, actually, I hit the drop-down menu, and it would show studio. But then when I tried to scroll down to it, it would disappear. And when I finally got into studio, the little direct call-in tab would disappear. And so I was sitting here just basically frustrated, not knowing how to overcome any of those issues. And pardon me, I've had some of those issues before, so I don't know if it's the operator dummy or whether it's some issue with their screen, with their technology. I really don't know. I would suspect that it's the operator dummy sitting here talking. But be that as it may, I'm glad that we're on. William, it's great to be back with you after being gone for 2 weeks for some pressing issues that had to be taken care of. And I'm obviously thrilled to death to be able to report that, number one, I don't have to have shoulder surgery as the doctor initially thought. And so that's really good news. But then again, and especially the absolutely marvelous good news, is that my wife does not have cancer again. We were very, very scared that she had a recurrence of breast cancer. But after 2.5 days of testing at the Cancer Treatment Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is, by the way, just a marvelous facility, they found no sign whatsoever of any cancer. So that was a huge relief. We're thankful to the Lord for that. And we carry on. And then the very next week after that testing, my oldest sister in Arkansas passed away. And so last week I had to be in Arkansas. I was there with my family, and I actually preached my sister's funeral. And so it's good to be back home. I am, needless to say, completely overwhelmed, being with correspondence, trying to get caught up. And so I will say to those who perhaps have tried to email me and correspond with me over the last 2 weeks and have gotten no response, I apologize for that. But like I said, I have been completely and totally distracted with family issues, with health issues, and with the death of my sister. But anyway, I'm, shall we say, back in the saddle, and glad to get back to doing the routine of things and trying to get some things accomplished. And so, like I said, it's good to be back with you here on Two Guys in a Bible, William.
Well, same here. Glad to have you back. And it's you've been missed. I know that you've been taking care of family issues, both your personal and your wife, as well as your sister. And so I hope everything is going well at this point.
It's going about as good as one could expect and one could hope, as a matter of fact. When I got back and started trying to catch up with my correspondence and checking in on YouTube to see what kind of comments had been there, I tell you what, William, it's really, really encouraging. I don't know if you have checked on my YouTube video page or not, but the last time I checked, which, to be honest about it, was yesterday morning, but we had for the first 2 nights, that does not count Saturday, but for the very first 2 nights, we had a total viewership of right at 3,400 views for Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. So we were very thrilled with that. And people already excited. I mentioned to everyone that our conference next year will follow up on the book of Revelation, since we obviously did not have the time to cover hardly anything in depth. But nonetheless, the response to it this year has been just really, really excellent. We're thankful to everyone who watched. We're thankful to the wonderful comments that we have gotten in response, and thankful to all of the speakers. Thankful, for instance, to William Bell. He had 2 fantastic lessons on the feast days of Israel in the book of Revelation. And, William, your last lesson on the last 3 feast days, and the Feast of Trumpet, Feast of, Yom Kippur, and especially Sukkot, they were home run hits as far as I'm concerned, and everyone else seemed to appreciate that fact as well. So, as always, we appreciate your participation. Great job as usual, and appreciate all of the other speakers who contributed. It was a very, very good Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. And folks, don't forget, those speeches, every speech from Preterist Pilgrim Weekend 2020 is archived. You can watch it right on YouTube. There's no charge of any kind. And so be sure to go there and avail yourself of that fantastic bit of information and the lessons that were presented. Every speaker really did a fine, fine job. I was very pleased. Are you there, William? Did I lose you?
No, you didn't ask me. I put my phone on mute because I'm still trying to work on my other microphone, and it could be that I signed into a different browser, and for some reason that browser doesn't like my microphone, or something's going on with it. So I may sign in, but if I do, you just keep going, and I'll try to sign back in on a different browser and see what happens.
Okay.
Because from what I can hear,
that sounds good. Well, your cell phone is not giving us very good audio.
Exactly.
William, with your permission, I want to read. I said something about this on my YouTube video, the video that will actually play later this week. I did the filming this morning, but with your permission, I wanted to share some of the things that you shared with me in the email yesterday about some of the things that you've been doing over the last several days, starting last Friday. I guess that did. But, folks, I want you to listen. And, William, if you want to relate this, it'd be just fine, but I was afraid that your audio quality would not come across real well and that people might miss, and I don't want them to miss what you've been doing. So, again, with your permission, I'll do this. Okay? Okay. Look, folks, a week from this Friday, a week ago last Friday, I guess last Friday now, pardon me, William had a Zoom 3-hour class for a group of folks from Jakarta, Indonesia, and yes, that was via Zoom. William's all up on this technology. I think I've used Zoom one time, and that was with William. But nonetheless, he had a 3-hour class with a group of people in Jakarta, Indonesia. Now, William, you didn't say how many, but all you said was that you had a great crowd, some of whom were already preterists. Did you ever get a count for how many were there?
I haven't gotten a count yet. I could probably get that information, and I will get it and post it. But again, it was very good. We had a good number of people, a great interpreter, and there were other people that they were sharing it with as well.
Oh, folks, this is incredible, right? And this gets back to the marvel of the age in which we are living, of the technology that we have for someone to sit in America, Memphis, Tennessee, and to teach a Bible class in Jakarta, Indonesia. Just think about that. The world has never seen a time like we are seeing right now. And as a corollary to that, by the way, even as we speak, in Amarillo, Texas, at 7 o'clock this evening, Central Time, Holger Neubauer will be having a formal public debate with Brother Bruce Reeves, who is a Church of Christ minister. They had their first night of a 4-night debate last night, and it's being live streamed. So all you have to do is go to, OlsonParkChurchofChrist.com, I believe is the correct address. And so, again, it's being live streamed. So it's difficult to imagine how incredibly wonderful the technology that we have at our fingertips these days truly is to help us to reach out across the world. But anyway, that was just one thing that William had last Friday. Then he had a study online with a lady in Brazil. Then he got a request from South Africa last night, that was July the 20th, requesting a Bible school for this individual to learn more. So there are 3 things that William has been involved in over the last week, slightly less than a week, of literally reaching out across the world, from Indonesia to South Africa to Brazil. Think about that, folks. This is literally incredible. And, I mean, our hat's off to William. I don't think the man ever sleeps, to be honest about it. I've become convinced of that more and more because he's online. He's on that Zoom thing. He is doing YouTube videos. He's doing his radio shows. I mean, it's just incredible the amount of production that William Bell is involved in doing right now. So we need to be thankful for him. Need to be thankful for his ministry, for his effectiveness. And it's just, literally, it's just absolutely fantastic.
Are you able to hear me now, Don?
I can hear you, William, yes.
Okay, am I coming across the
That's
mic
better.
now?
Yes, that is definitely better. So are you there now? Well, now I've lost you. So, obviously, William is struggling with his technology tonight. And so while he attempts to get that corrected again, I'll just share with you, in going back through my emails after being gone, taking care of family health issues and the death of my sister and what have you. When I got back, I started going through my emails, and I had tried to check some of them remotely, and I had responded to a few, but not all that terribly many. I was continually amazed at the wonderful, the thrilling, the gratifying emails that I had gotten from individuals, and once again, from literally all around the world. Of individuals, I had one individual that has come out of the dispensational world, had another individual who's just come out of the amillennial world. I got a book request from an individual, from a lady who asked me to sign the book because she said my son has just become a full preterist, and he's really, really excited, wants me to sign the book, that type of thing. But, I mean, just one email after another of people who are just so incredibly excited about about what about what they are learning and the freedom that they are experiencing, and needless to say, the difficulties that they are also encountering. I think I hear William trying to get back on.
Okay,
let me read. Yeah, I can hear you now. But I got this one message from an individual on Facebook, for instance, who said, I will be ordering both of your books, the new books that I had mentioned on Facebook and YouTube, and he has since ordered those. But he said, I've had a paradigm change. It started 3.5 years ago when I discovered by accident one of your videos on YouTube. There are no accidents with God. Can you imagine, after being a Christian for almost 50 years, and discovering the truth, well, better late than never. And he said, I expect the fireworks to start sooner or later when people find out, and they probably will. He said, I just simply love to preach. And another individual sent me this, I call them testimonials. This individual had purchased our 3-book special offer that was all the way back in January. And he said, I absolutely love your work in this area on metaphoric and hyperbolic usage of language in the Bible. Maybe God is putting it like that so man will develop good common sense. The futurists that I know lack such good common sense, not only in their eschatology, but in many other areas of their lives. Guess what I'm saying is that if you can understand preterism, you will make better, logical, and more sensible decisions in the other parts of life as well. This is just an extremely, extremely small sampling of the kind of testimonials that I get on a virtual everyday basis. Since those 2 testimonials, I've added a fairly long list of other testimonials from people around the world about what they are experiencing in their lives since coming to understand covenant eschatology. So it really honestly is super, super exciting to be a part of this. It's great to be partners with William Bell, as I suggested a moment ago. He and I have been partners for a long time, since 1981. Yeah, since 1981, 82, along in there, and it's really, really been a gratifying, satisfying, and rewarding partnership as we work together, and as then of course as we have our own personal and independent ministries. I didn't have the contacts with the folks in Jakarta or Brazil or in South Africa. Now, I've got several contacts, by the way, in South Africa. I've had a lot of video calls and FaceTime calls with folks in South Africa who, by the way, who had begun to experience persecution. And we're trying to come to grips with that. And so, like I said, it's great to have our personal independent ministries, but it's great to work together as well on things like Two Guys in the Bible here on Fulfilled Radio. All right.
Yes, it is. Can you still hear me now? Okay.
I can.
Okay, very good. I wanted to add one additional thing. And ladies and gentlemen, I did get on the air on time. It's just that my mic wasn't working. So after you heard the first initial introduction, I was already speaking and realized, that something apparently was wrong, but, couldn't communicate with anyone. But we're up and running, and so that's good. We apologize for all the technical difficulties from the beginning. I know now not to use Firefox browser when I'm trying to do Blog Talk Radio. So Chrome is working better, and I'll just keep using what works. At any rate, I just wanted
really interesting. That's really interesting, William, because I use nothing but Firefox.
Okay, well, I don't know what it is here. It could just be something in the settings that, needs to be tweaked. At any rate, I did want to mention also on our Sunday morning broadcast that we do on the air that gets streamed live on Facebook. And, many of you may have noticed who watched that we had the studio has had a facelift and looks real nice. They're still doing some really nice things in the studio. But Sunday, just by chance, I left my phone at home where they do the live stream through my phone and put it on my live page. Well, they ended up doing it through one of the studio phones, and they plugged it directly into their page. And as a result, it usually takes us about a week to get up to 1,000 viewers, depending on the lesson. But this particular week, we had 1,000 viewers the first day, and we're into the second day, and we're almost up to 2,000 viewers just on the Facebook platform. And in addition to that, they've expanded it to the East Coast now. So there are a lot more people who have access and who are listening as well. And then we get a little free promotion on, maybe every other Tuesday, because they call me and ask me for a bit of commentary, which I have no idea what I'm talking about, but nevertheless, it's working so far. But it's good promotion for the radio broadcast, and it works. At any rate, That's very good. I've noticed that there are different people who are interacting with the broadcast. Now, I know a lot of people who probably didn't get a chance to listen because it was on my personal page, even though we've shared it to the personal page, because it's out there on their page. Other people are listening, so we want to definitely take advantage of that, and we appreciate the support that we get for the broadcast. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really exciting stuff. I mean, anytime you're getting 1,000, 2,000 views over in about 2 days, that's really, really good. Now, as I tell people occasionally, I'm up to something like 5,100 subscribers plus on my YouTube video, and I'm just thrilled to death about that. It's it's something that I'm very proud of. I know you've got a ton of subscribers as well, but I tell people occasionally, I said, look, I know that doesn't approach a lot of these YouTube channels that have 1 million views, that have 100,000 subscribers and what have you. William, it's really kind of humbling, isn't it? And frustrating at the same time when there are cats, literally four-legged cats, that people view, live film in their house, and you get 1 million people watching it every day. And you're going, seriously? 1 million people watching a cat? A cat?
Oh, yeah. Of course, I've heard that there's a surge of people watching dispensationalist videos because a lot of them are living in fear at the present time. Oh, yeah. And so, that's another one of the issues. But I'm sure, we can continue to expand our message and maybe get some of those people to really start listening to, some solid truth along the way and get them out of that fear and into a much more confident lifestyle in terms of their present and their future.
Amen to that. Amen to that. It's I knew just from casually observing on YouTube and listening to people people corresponding with me that more and more people. I mean, it's really, really disturbing that so many people live in abject fear, and they're absolutely convinced that the coronavirus is proof positive that we're living in the last days. And I think it's interesting. N.T. Wright and another author have just come out with a book on the question of the coronavirus, whether or not it's a sign that we're in the last days. Scott McKnight, I am on his Twitter account, and he sends out one or two, what do they call it, tweets? Shows you how technologically advanced I am. 1 or 2 tweets a day. And over a week, every tweet had to do with whether or not coronavirus is a sign of the end. And, it's so sad to realize that people are that, to use the term, gullible. And
I was wondering if you were going to say it.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to be unkind here, but it's so disturbing. As someone in correspondence with me over the last several days has pointed out, I had never in my life realized the importance of honoring audience relevance until I started watching your videos. And all of a sudden, the Bible started making sense to me, and I realized that the Bible was not talking about events that had not yet happened or that were not supposed to happen for 2,000 or 3,000 years, but that rather they were talking about things that they truly did expect to happen and said were going to happen in their lifetime. And, they talk about finally understanding the Bible in the context, in the culture in which it was written. And, you and I have been doing this an awful long time. And in some ways, when you hear somebody say what a revelation it was to discover the reality and the importance of audience relevance. And it's almost shocking at times because it makes you go, how could anyone not honor audience relevance? But people don't. And when you start suggesting the importance of audience relevance to Bible studies, they literally get insulted. About 3 years ago, I had an individual. I had produced a series of YouTube videos on proper hermeneutics, how to understand Bible prophecy. By the way, that was more than 3 years ago, but anyway. And I talked about audience relevance. This individual commented and said, this doctrine of audience relevance is from the devil. It is an evil, wicked doctrine that has to be stopped. And I'm going, how could that possibly be true? And so, what was so interesting and fascinating about it, that individual and I had some exchanges, and I tried to impress upon them the importance of audience relevance. Well, thankfully, a couple of months later, this very same individual wrote back and said, I want to apologize to Mr. Preston and to everyone on his YouTube video for calling him a false teacher and for condemning audience relevance. I had decided to dig into this, to discover it, to understand it, and he said, and they said, it was actually a woman, they said, I have never been ashamed of myself so much in all of my life as to realize how ignorant I had been for rejecting the importance of audience relevance. And I am now a full preterist. And that was very, very gratifying. But it illustrates the problem that we confront of people that literally have no clue about how to interpret Bible prophecy. Now, folks, this is so relevant in our discussion of the Messianic temple. Over these last 65 audios, we have been sharing with you how to interpret these Old Testament prophecies of the last days Messianic temple. We have pointed out to you how when we go to these prophecies, and we've been spending some time lately on Ezekiel 37, and William, I don't know if you continued those studies over the last 2 weeks or not, but you can answer that here momentarily. But we have been sharing with you that the constituent elements that are found in Ezekiel 37 are commented on and interpreted by the New Testament writers. And that interpretation of Ezekiel 37 completely and totally falsifies the dispensational paradigm. I would suggest it likewise destroys any futurist paradigm because it's a prophecy of the resurrection that would only take place when the Messiah was on the throne, ruling through the new covenant and dwelling with his people in the new tabernacle. And Paul, 2 Corinthians chapter 6, quotes verbatim from Ezekiel 37 and says that the church of the living God, fulfillment of Ezekiel 37, 26, and 27, about the establishment of God's tabernacle among men. And so we've tried to share with you the proper hermeneutic. The proper hermeneutic is let the Bible interpret itself. And this is so contrary. It's so shocking. In one of my debates with Michael Brown, and he was basically following other dispensational writers such as Arnold Fruchtenbaum. But when I pointed out the New Testament interpretation of the book of Hosea, as that interpretation found in the book of Peter, 1 Peter, Dr. Brown actually said, and folks, you've got to listen to this. Dr. Brown actually said the New Testament writers have no authority, no right to reinterpret Old Testament prophecy. Well, nobody said they did. What they do, however, is they have the right, they have the authority through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit to tell us what the Old Testament prophets actually meant. Because they tell us very clearly, 1 Peter chapter 1, 10 to 12, that the Old Testament prophets did not understand either the time or the nature of the things that they understood. And I want you to think about that for a moment, ladies and gentlemen, when we come to Ezekiel 37. In Ezekiel 37, we have the prediction of the Messianic temple. Well, our dispensational friends say temple means temple. And land means land. Therefore, Messiah will not rule over through the new covenant until Israel is fully restored to the land and a literal physical Messianic temple is established. But wait a minute. That is not how Paul, who was preaching nothing but the hope of Israel, that's not how Paul interpreted Ezekiel 37. So, as we have said so very, very often, it's all about hermeneutic. The entire understanding of biblical prophecy is all about hermeneutic. You have the wrong hermeneutic, you have a wrong understanding of Scripture. Just as I listened to Brother Bruce Reeves and his debate with Holger Neubauer last night, I listened to Brother Reeves. He had a very, very well-organized presentation. And it was all on 1 Corinthians 15. It was more than obvious that he thought he had the answers to preterism based on 1 Corinthians. Oh, pardon me. Boy, that came out of nowhere. Based on 1 Corinthians 15. Some beautiful slides, beautiful charts, that is. And yet, as I listened, as I said, and I watched the debate, I saw one false assumption after another. One false claim after another. And that is because Brother Bruce Reeves, he seemed like a great guy. He had a wonderful demeanor about himself. He presented himself as a Christian gentleman. He certainly to be commended for his wonderful behavior. Worlds better than a whole lot of our other debate opponents. But nonetheless, his entire approach was based upon a faulty hermeneutic. Because he had a faulty hermeneutic, his entire lesson, debate, presentation was false. No matter how slick it was, no matter how well presented it was, and he did a fine job of presenting his case as he understood it. And I told Holger today, as I was visiting with him about the debate, I said, for the unlearned, for those who did not see and recognize his hermeneutical presuppositions that underlay his entire lesson, it was a convincing lesson. It sounded really, really good. But he started out with the wrong premise. His opening premise was, in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul is dealing with who are denying the resurrection, period. They did not believe in resurrection. Now, he made that comment, and then he turned right around and said, now, folks, they didn't deny the resurrection of Jesus. And I'm sitting there watching this on my monitor, and I'm going, wait a minute. You just said they denied resurrection. Now you're saying they didn't deny the resurrection of Jesus. Pretty obviously, they were not denying resurrection. I mean, how do you make a comment like that? How do you not see the fallacy of that kind of an argument? Yet, he started off like that, and he built the rest of his presentation on that false assumption. Again, folks, hermeneutics are everything. Now, as I said, William, I don't know what you talked about the last 2 weeks, whether we need to pick up on what you presented or whether exactly how we need to proceed. So tell us a little bit about what you shared the last couple of weeks.
Well, I just covered Ezekiel 37, talked a little bit about the nature of resurrection as it related to Isaiah 26, and a little bit in Daniel in terms of, the national aspect of it, but showed that was the basis of argumentation that leads into the New Testament text that you were referring to. I touched a little bit from 2 Corinthians as well and did a little bit of exegesis from there, but nothing that I'm sure we can't continue to go over and that you can proceed as you had intended to from the beginning. I was trying to steer clear of, things that you had covered for the most part. But that's basically, what I did. And so I think if you, just move right into the information that you were planning, you'd be just fine.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm sure you did a fantastic job on that. One thing that I do want to remind everyone about, okay, because this is so critical. Once again, and again, I wasn't on the internet all that terribly much while I was gone over the last couple of weeks. I had my videos pre-recorded except last week, and so I did not have videos last week. But I would occasionally, for a few moments before the day got started, I would get on and I would read comments, mostly from the adversaries of covenant eschatology. As usual, I saw that argument being used. The Pharisees believed in physical resurrection. Paul said he was a Pharisee. Therefore, Paul must have believed in physical resurrection. Now, folks, I shared with you about 3 or 4 weeks ago how important Ezekiel 37 is in answering that. And, by the way, I have a brand new book that will be out shortly. My inventory is supposed to be in by the 1st of August. It is Paul on Trial, Paul, the Pharisees, and Resurrection. And one of the things that I develop in that book is the fact, and by the way, I want everyone to pay very, very careful attention to what I'm about to share with you right now. Many of the world's leading scholars, okay, let me say this again. Many of the world's leading scholars and even their opponents acknowledge and admit that the Pharisees' doctrine of resurrection was bound up with, it was part of the warp and the woof of their expectation of the nationalistic restoration of Israel, of all 12 tribes, to the physical land of Israel. Now, right here in Ezekiel chapter 37, 21 and following, the Lord said, I will bring you out of the nations to which I have scattered you. I will bring you back into the land, and you will dwell in the land of your fathers. Now, once again, our dispensational friends say, look, land means dirt. Land means land. It doesn't mean anything else. Well, if that were true, they'd have a really strong argument here. But what is land? Well, it's a dwelling place. It's where people live. It's where they reside. And so here are the Pharisees who base their resurrection hope. I mean, after all, Ezekiel chapter 37, verses 1 to 14 is about resurrection. It's about the resurrection of Israel. It's about the resurrection of all 12 tribes of Israel. And it is the resurrection of the 12 tribes to the land. So these scholars recognize that the Pharisaic notion of resurrection was inseparably bound up with. It was never divorced from. They did not have a theology of resurrection that was separate from, independent from, their doctrine of national, physical restoration of all 12 tribes to the physical land. Now, folks, if that doesn't soak into you this second time you've heard it, or the third time or whatever, then I ask you to give very, very careful thought to that. It is, in fact, naive to say. It is, in fact, ignorant to say, and I'm not trying to be ugly here. I'm simply saying that to say, oh, the Pharisees believed in physical resurrection, and to not be either aware of or to recognize and to assimilate into that declaration the knowledge and the understanding that their doctrine of resurrection was not simply a doctrine of raising bodies out of the ground. It was a doctrine of the raising of bodies to be restored to the physical land. And by the way, this is really interesting. In the second century work, The Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, which, ostensibly claimed to be written or spoken by the 12 sons of Jacob. Now, this was written after the fall of Jerusalem, but it still expressed the Pharisaic hope of resurrection. 3 of those testaments, the patriarch who was speaking, one of them is Judah. I've forgotten what the name of the other 2 were, but 3 out of the 12 patriarchs in the testimony of the 12 patriarchs said that in the resurrection they would be restored to a position of leadership to rule over the physical land of Israel. Now that testifies to the nationalistic, materialistic, may I use the term, carnal concept of the Jewish belief in resurrection. Now, I mentioned these scholars. N.T. Wright is on record as saying, I document this, in my upcoming book. N.T. Wright is on record saying, the doctrine of resurrection was, from its inception, revolutionary. Well, why was it revolutionary? Because, he says, it was tied to the Pharisaic hope of the restoration of national Israel. Now, think about this, folks. The concept of the restoration of national Israel flew right into the teeth, into the face of Roman rule. But it's one of the reasons why the Pharisees chafed so much under Roman rule. It is because they believed that Messiah was going to come, whip the Romans, raise the righteous of Israel from the dead, restore them to the physical land, purify the city of Jerusalem, purify the Levitical priesthood, restore it once again, because after all, since the murder of Onias IV in the second century BC, there had not been a properly qualified high priest to serve in the temple. And so the Pharisaic concept was the restoration of the Zadokite Levitical priesthood with the offering once again of pure animal sacrifices in the temple. And so, as I got on Facebook, what little I did while I was gone, and these individuals would argue Well, Pharisees believed in physical resurrection. Paul said he was a Pharisee. Therefore, Paul believed in physical resurrection. I would post on there and I'd say, here's what the Pharisees believed about resurrection. Did Paul believe the same things? Did Paul believe in the restoration of all 12 physical tribes to the physical land of Israel, in a purified Jerusalem, in a purified temple, with a purified Zadokite Levitical priesthood, offering physical animal sacrifices? Well, let's look at it like this, folks. Paul said in Romans chapter 11, verse 7, Israel has not attained that which he sought, but the elect has obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Okay. What we have to realize is that there were two hopes of Israel. There was the proper biblical eschatological hope of Israel, which was taught by Paul. There was the distorted, perverted hope of Israel, which was taught by the Pharisees. And so as I pose a question in my upcoming book, could Paul have been saying, by any stretch of the imagination, when he says, Israel has not attained that to which he sought, but the elect has attained it? Okay. Had the elect, at the time Paul wrote, had the elect in any sense whatsoever re-inherited the physical land promises? Would that not be a valid question, William?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, if the physical land promise was the literal, proper, correct, and true hope of Israel, and Paul says the elect has already started receiving the fulfillment of the hope of Israel, then it seems to me that you've got to show how some of the elect were, how they were receiving the land promises. Now, what it suddenly struck me, I should have included this in the book. What do we find in Acts 4 and 5?
I was just thinking of that.
I don't know why I didn't. I don't know why I didn't remember that at the time I was writing the book. Looks like a revision is in order already. But what were the Christians in Judea and Jerusalem doing when they became Christians? They were selling their land. Now, folks, listen to me. That's serious stuff. Your identity as an Israelite was attached to the land. You were identified. Your inheritance was the land. They were not even allowed to sell the land permanently. They could only sell property for 7 years at a time because of the Jubilee and festival attachments to it. But here are the children of God, Christians, selling their land. And by the way, these are the elect that Paul said were receiving and entering into the hope of Israel. I think everyone could also see they were not entering into a purified temple, a purified priesthood, offering purified animal sacrifices. I mean, every single thing that the Pharisees posited as the hope of Israel, which they identified in a materialistic, nationalistic, and physical way, both Jesus, Paul, Peter, and the New Testament writers categorically defined as spiritually interpreted. Spiritually defined, not physically. That touches directly, folks, on the doctrine of the Messianic temple, because you got Peter in Acts chapter 4:11 and following saying that the precious stone, the tried cornerstone, the stone which the builders rejected, had become the chief cornerstone. And he says, you, the builders, have rejected that stone. but he identified that stone as Jesus. Now, wait a minute, folks. If Jesus, the living Messiah, is the chief cornerstone of the Messianic temple, what does that tell us about the nature of the Messianic temple, which is the Messianic temple of Ezekiel 37, 26, and 27? And thus Peter in 1 Peter chapter 2, 5 and following. You therefore as living stones are being built up a spiritual house to offer up spiritual sacrifices, spiritual priesthood, to offer up acceptable sacrifices unto God through Jesus Christ. What kind of a temple was Peter talking about? Well, it's a spiritual priesthood, and it's a spiritual, they're spiritual sacrifices, and it's a spiritual temple. This is the Messianic temple of Ezekiel 37. We cannot overlook, we cannot deny the spiritual nature of the Messianic temple of Ezekiel 37. And to return to the motif, when people start arguing, as they have been on Facebook over the last couple of weeks, Pharisees believed in physical resurrection. Well, they got that from Ezekiel 37, they thought. Paul was a Pharisee, therefore Paul believed in physical resurrection. No, wait a minute. Paul's interpretation of Ezekiel 37 and Paul's interpretation of the resurrection of Ezekiel 37 was spiritual, not physical. And oh, by the way, that is why the Pharisees wanted to kill Paul for his doctrine of the resurrection. And folks, we are absolutely out of time. Great to be back with you again after a 2-week hiatus. William, great to be back with you as always. Thank you, folks, for being with us here on Two Guys in the Bible on Fulfilled Radio, a voice you can trust. With that, I will say good night and God bless.
Thank you for joining the Two Guys in the Bible radio broadcast. On behalf of Dunn Preston and myself, we'd like to say have a very pleasant day and may God bless. Until next time, we'll see you on Fulfill Radio, a voice you can trust.